Welcome to my second video in the You Ask I Answer series from the Highway of Change. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and this is the You Ask I Answer logo. Okay, this question was sent in by Mark Green, who is a business change program manager for the National Grid in the UK. He asked, what's the most challenging environment you've worked in over the years, and what did you do to make a real difference and embed the change? That's a great interview question, Mark. I hope I get the job after this, eh? Let me know. Thanks. Okay. I can think of three really challenging projects off the top of my head, and they were all over a year in length, and they were all over 20 years ago, and these were actually digital transformations of the day. So digital transformation, people, is nothing new. What were the three projects? Okay, one was a core banking implementation for an Austrian bank in Warsaw, Poland. That was about nearly 18 months worth. The second was a centralised electronic ministerial briefing system for a large government department in London. And the third one was an engineering signalling record centre consolidation for the owner-operator of the UK's railway infrastructure in London. Which one am I going to choose? Well, I've already chosen one, actually. It's the second one. It's the implementation of the ministerial briefing system. What I'd like to do is just add a bit of context, if I may. I accepted the assignment with some trepidation, for two reasons. Number one, knowing that I would be dealing with some very, very senior stakeholders, i.e., e.g., government ministers and even lords of the realm. And secondly, knowing that the public sector were far more resistant in their attitude to change than the private sector. But hey ho, that's what we change managers do for a living. Okay, briefly, just to give a bit more context, the project was to provide one, high quality briefing which met the needs of the business, because the document briefing process was not fit for purpose in its current state or format. And secondly, there was to provide a step change in the production and centralised availability of departmental briefing information to departmental ministers. Okay, so back to the question. Most challenging environment, yes it was, and what did I do to embed the change? In short, as it was a year long, we did a lot. Seriously. What we did was, there were two aspects that featured heavily during the project, and that was communication and change resistance. Okay. So let me talk about communication first. And yes, I know I talked about communication in the first video, but hey, like any good communication, it's well worth repeating the message. And I'm going to do it from a slightly different perspective this time. Okay. First of all, we had a large user base in excess of 4,000 people. Okay. So it was critical to cast the communication net as wide as possible, and also to provide both generic and specific tailored communication to the different communities that were impacted by the change in a different way. Okay, so what did we do? We used a vast variety of communication channels. We used the departmental bulletin, we used the infonet, the departmental intranet, we attended departmental forums and away days. We used Grassroots, the internal staff magazine. We created a user group to get some early adopters in on the case. We attended departmental meetings. We obviously used the invariable emails. And we had one-to-one sessions where appropriate and possible. All messages and mechanisms were coordinated and kept up to date with what we thought everything the user community needed to know. Okay, a talked about emails earlier on. Now, we're well aware that email communication is not the most efficient of communication mechanisms. So to try and get away from the usual boring text-only email, what I did was I created an automated PowerPoint show which I attached to the email, and I provided what I thought was very, very clear instructions on what to do and how to open it. Well, you could blow me down with a feather. It created a lot of interest and engagement, but just let me give you an example of 2 bits of feedback I received from 2 different people, okay? And it just gives you an idea of how different people treat different communication mechanisms. First feedback I got was very impressive, easy to access, interactive, great use of technology. Rock on. Second one was, I've spent 10 minutes trying to open the attachment and trying to work out how to do it. I've now given up and deleted it. Okay, thank you very much for that feedback. But for me, there's always lessons learned from feedback like this. And number 1 lesson was, do not assume everyone is technology literate. Number 2, include very, very detailed instructions, including pictures. A picture paints 1,000 words. Okay, sorry, no more. All right, that's enough on communication. Let's talk about now change resistance, but it's related to communication. When communicating as much as we did give people the opportunity to, for want of a better phrase, vent their frustration, and I'm being polite there. Exchanges were many and varied. Some were more critical than others. Again, let me give you a few examples of some of the words and phrases that were used, that were sent in. Not your fault, but this has really not been well handled. Okay, I'm glad it wasn't my fault, thank you very much. It will turn out to be a discredited waste of time. Really? Centrally driven obsession is totally misguided. Okay. Just another distraction from mainstream activities. Isn't that another way of saying that's the way we've always done it? Classic phrase. And finally, a classic example of technology for the sake of it. Well, it wasn't actually for the sake of it, it was for a specific purpose. Anyway, so what did I do in relation to that? I made a specific point of replying to each and every one of those messages and emails. And as a follow-up, tried to get onto meetings. Another example. I engaged with the head of one department in the first instance who flatly refused to use the new application. He said, we haven't got time, we're not going to do it, that's it. I actually managed to get them to let me take over one of their team meetings, which was great because their time was precious. Well, that was kind of like a real baptism of fire for me because I totally underestimated the actual level of hostility. It was incredible, to be honest. It was sniping, griping, moaning, groaning, you name it. They were having a real dig. However, I persevered. And as the meeting progressed, I was able to rebut most of their misgivings and criticisms. But finally, finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was a demonstration of how easy it was to create a brief. You could actually see the light bulb moments by the looks on their faces and the body language. And it was great. I knew then that my message was getting across. This department eventually became an avid user of the application and produced many, many quality briefs, which were used as best practice. I don't like the word best practice, which were used as good practice for other departments to follow suit. And what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is there's nothing like a change resistor turned change champion to further the cause. Despite what our good friend John Cotter said, he said it was not worthwhile spending your time on this activity. But then, what does he know? Sorry. Finally, just a few things that I'd like to mention. Number one, the internal team I work with, who were more than willing to pull up their sleeves and get stuck in. Number two, the level of support offered and given by senior ministers, government ministers, in relation to their accessibility and promotional activity. And thirdly, then this was great, our approach was actually recommended by the Cabinet Office to other government departments as the way things should be done. Hey, that means we got something right. In summary, made a real difference and embedding change, okay. A comprehensive and coordinated and targeted communication plan and activity, and managing resistance head on and converting the naysayers to become change champions. That's it again. These videos are a bit longer than I thought, but then, hey, when you're telling a story, you have to provide context. And the last time people said it would be nice to give some examples, so I provided a few more examples. I've already got one question sorted out for next week. But hey, keep on sending them in because I like to have a pipeline. So thank you very much again for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Cheers.